Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rice Rockets here. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are going to be doing a little vlogging. Take a break from the country rides and the highway rides, as much fun as they are. But yeah, let's get into the episode. So today, as the title indicates, I'm going to be sharing a story about a co-worker that I had just prior to leaving the dealership who flipped a bike, or a scooter rather. Really, it was a scooter, but it doesn't matter either way, the thing flipped. And, you know, I now have a lot of time to think, since I don't have a job. On a mission. I have a lot of time to think, and I've been reflecting on a lot of stuff in my whole life, not just the dealership, but kind of trying to, again, start from the ground up, foundation, ground zero, if you will, and figure out what I'm good at and my qualities. I'm making a lot of lists. But yeah, I thought back to this one particular situation, and it taught me a lot about who I am and what I'm interested in and what I'm naturally, you know, geared towards. So the story goes like this. The month before I left, I cut down to part-time to kind of, I guess it was like a baby step to where I'm at now. And yeah, so when I cut down, they obviously needed to have somebody else to fill in for the days that I wasn't going to be there. So they hired this kid, and you know, he was 26 years old. He's a French guy, and he was very excitable, is the nice way to say it. I determined after, you know, shortly after meeting him, that maybe he was on the spectrum, like something was up. He's very excited about everything, very eager to learn. He didn't know a thing about motorcycles, which is fine, because in my days in managing restaurants, I almost preferred hiring people who didn't really have much experience, with the intent of training them the way that I wanted them to be trained. So the knowledge thing wasn't a problem, but he was very scatterbrained, unable to focus, and you know, I got fatigued really quickly. And I have a lot of patience. Like, I've trained a lot of people. I'm very accepting, I like to think, and I have been told, of many different types of people. So, you know, I knew it couldn't just be me. But this kid, basically, the first week, I was there for like 3 days or 2 days, so it wasn't all that much. And I was like, all right, this kid's kind of intense, but it's gonna be all right, because I only see him twice a week. How bad could it be? The second week, I almost lost my shit at the end of the first day, because he was trying to learn about motorcycles. God bless his heart. And he was just hammering me with questions. And while that's cool, like, I really don't mind, he wasn't listening to any of the answers. He wasn't absorbing any of the information. So it's almost as if he was just asking things to ask it, and seem busy. You know, very basic stuff. Like, he was going through the spec sheets, which is great. Again, trying to understand what all these different terms meant, but he wasn't writing anything down, and he wasn't retaining any of this. And then at a certain point, I really thought that, like, he was playing dumb to maybe set the dealership up for, like, a lawsuit or something, like get hurt on the job. I wasn't quite sure, because the question he asked me that we spent about 20 minutes on was what a wheel was. So we were going through the spec sheet, and it said wheels, and then I don't think it says tires on there, but anyway, it said wheels, and he's like, so what is this? And I explained, you know, it's a wheel, like on a bike or a car or anything. And he's like, so what part of the bike is it? And he just couldn't figure it out, and I just didn't know if he was messing with me or not. Obviously, wheels do get complicated at, like, the technical level, though. Like, when you start racing, you start thinking about different rubber compounds and different, you know, like, we aren't at that point. We're just trying to know what's on the bikes that we're selling. So it seemed very odd to me that, like, he couldn't grasp the concept of a wheel. And I knew it wasn't a French thing. It was because they have wheels in France, as far as I know. So this kid seemed to be kind of playing dumb, so I wasn't sure. So at the end of my first week, I was exhausted. And then the third week started, and I had zero left in the tank, even from those couple days. And man, 1 hour with that kid feels like a day. And he started asking me questions about how to talk to people, basically, how to like handle certain leads that he had. He's like, well, this person hasn't called me back, what do I do? This person hasn't emailed me back, what do I say? I've already said everything there is to say, what do I do? And so my response was just the typical, like, this happens all the time, like, they will ghost you, and even if they're not ghosting you, maybe they're just busy, and they'll get back to you, right? Like, no big deal. And he seemed to be taking it very personally, like he was hurt by it, but he started implying that he's like, well, you just don't know what you're doing. And I was like, listen, you're asking me a question, I'm giving you an answer. If you've called him, you've texted him, you've emailed him, let him be. But he couldn't sit with that. Like, it wasn't an acceptable answer for him. So it got to a point where he said, well, clearly you're not very good at sales. And I was so frustrated and beaten down, and I just said, you know what, I think you're right. And that was the beginning of my thought process of, like, maybe I'm not right for this job. Although I don't think it applies in this situation, but I kind of, like, just threw my arms up just to get him off my back and said, like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I guess I'm bad at sales and you're good. And he's like, so he started explaining his philosophy of sales to me, which was like, oh, you have to do this, you have to hammer them, you have to call them and text them until they tell you to stop or they give in. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever, buddy. And then, like 20 minutes passes, like we don't talk for a minute, 20 minutes passes, and this guy comes in. He doesn't speak any English, he's all Spanish, but I can gather that he's looking for an inspection. So I'm like, no problem. And then the manager at that point is there, and he says, hey, can you take the new guy and show him how to do an inspection? I said, no problem. So I walked him out. The customer, myself, and this kid walk outside, and he has a scooter. Clearly is delivering food for, like, Grubhub or something. And so I start going over the bike, I look at the tread, take down the license plate number, check his registration, etc. And then I go to check the brakes, and the brakes aren't working, the brake light. And then the guy goes, he starts moving around. Again, he speaks Spanish, so I don't understand. He's saying something, but he's clearly saying that he has to turn the bike on. So I turn the bike on, and I say, hey, to my coworker, can you press the brake levers for me? I got to check the lights. And so next thing I know, I take a step back to, like, look at the lights, and this kid grabs the throttle and is like, I just hear the engine take off, just the scooter flips up. Scooter flips up, is like chips off the back rack that he has on there. It's like a metal rack that's attached. The bike is kind of skipping in place. The kid is holding on to the handles now on both sides. Like, at first he was just holding the throttle, and then he threw his other arm on there to, like, hold it still, but he clearly just panicked. And it's like, honestly, I feel really bad because it's like a very traumatizing experience, but the whole thing's going up, and I'm screaming at him. I'm saying, hey, just let the bike go, you're gonna get hurt, like, just let it go. And he's like, no, I can save it. And I'm like, oh my god. So I run over, I hit the kill switch, and the bike, like, the power stops, so it just falls directly back onto the seat and to the, well, really the dash, because that's the other thing that sticks up. But yeah, I mean, oh man, it was such a mess, and there were, like, pieces of plastic everywhere. And I'm looking at this guy, the customer, and his face is just like, he's actually fairly cool. Like, he tried to intervene, but he didn't really know what to do, and so he's just standing there, and you can see a storm is brewing underneath the calm surface. And this other kid is just, like, eyebrows raised, kind of like frozen, rightfully so. Oh man. So, the whole time I'm like, oh my god, like, so I tell the guys, like, listen, I am so sorry, we're going to take care of this, like, I can't apologize enough, because in my head I'm thinking, like, imagine going in for a $7 inspection and getting your entire bike, not totaled, I don't know how you want to define it, it still worked, but, like, destroyed. Like, I would be in disbelief and, like, shock, regardless of whether or not it's a scooter. It was just, like, it was very embarrassing. So we're all standing there, and I run in and grab the manager, and I'm just like, yeah, you're gonna want to come out here. And so manager comes out and he starts talking to the guy in Spanish. I don't know what they're saying, but everybody seems very oddly calm. Again, the over relaxed motorcycle demeanor. I don't get it. In restaurants, it's a much different story. Even when you drop a piece of bread, it's like, oh my god. So anyway, I'm standing there with this kid, and we're both just like standing with our arms crossed because we're watching them talk. Neither of us really speak Spanish. He speaks a little bit. And so the kid looks at me and he's like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, well, you should say something to the guy, right? And he looks at me, he's like, well, what do I say? And he doesn't want to talk to me. And I was like, well, say you're sorry. Like, say something. You know, like, the guy's out a bunch of money and potentially his ride today. Say something. And the kid looks at me and he's just like, well, you know, the manager will apologize for us. And I was, you know, at this time, like, again, in this job, my first non-management job in a while, I have to, you know, just pull back. And I'm kind of like, all right, you're not a manager, so just let him do him. So it's exactly what I did. I was just like, all right, whatever. But, you know, well, let me finish this story up quickly. Sorry, this is taking so long. So the guy comes in and he's just standing there. The scooter goes down to the shop for them to do an assessment, and I guess, I don't know what happened after that, but it was taken care of in some way. Needless to say, he did not need to pay for that inspection. I offered to buy him lunch while he was waiting, just because it's like the least we could do, right? Like, it just felt weird because nobody even offered anything. It was just like, yeah, hang out, we'll figure it out. It's very calm. And I was like, yo, can I buy you lunch or like a coffee or something to just like make this maybe a little less awful than it is? So anyway, I thought back on that. In the past week, I thought back on that experience, and what I realized is, not only was that conversation beneficial because I came to the conclusion that sales was not for me. Sales was for someone like him. Someone who's content to just hammer people, like, without any thought process, just like, hey, buy this bike, hey, buy this bike, hey, buy this bike. That's the type of person who should be doing sales. And then I also, in that experience, learned that he had no, like, his brain didn't work the other way. So he may be good for that job, but he wasn't good for the customer service job or, like, human interaction at all, really. Like, he didn't really know what to do. And I realized I was kind of flipped in some ways. Like, I was not meant for the sales job. But I guess from my years in restaurants, like, I just kind of knew how to roll with things and have a conversation, tackle a different situation as it comes up, you know. So, like, I'm a little more geared towards that. And, like, everybody's just different. Not that you can't change or make an adjustment, but, you know, it's just, people are different. So anyway, it got me to thinking. I left restaurants for a reason, right? I didn't want to be in, not only because I was tired of it, but because for a long time I didn't want to work in restaurants. I was not suited for sales. So I started making charts and started making lists, thinking about, like, what qualities make me me, what qualities are interesting to me and that I could potentially sustain for a while. And, you know, I realized, like, for as long as I can remember, I get obsessed with, like, I guess they're like avocations, is that what we call them? Yeah, avocations, like hobbies, and yeah, I just like things like motorcycling, skateboarding, riding my fixed gear bike, drawing, video editing. Like, I'm always jumping from thing to thing because they've been side projects. And I also, for as long as I can remember, have complained about, you know, being emotionally exhausted from having to just deal with people and entertain and talk and have that be a main part of my job, one of the main parts. And then when looking at my restaurant experience, like, the things that I really took pride in were being a sommelier, right? That was just mostly for the intellectual properties of, like, having to study the history of wine in different regions and organize grapes and memorize different shortcuts and techniques. Like, that was the interesting part to me. It wasn't so much the being on the floor and sharing about it and being glamorous, right? Entertaining, so to speak. As a manager, it was less entertaining and shooting the shit with the VIPs. Like, that was, yeah, it's fine, but it's not interesting, and it's an exhausting process, at least for me. What I did like about it was creating the systems of the restaurant. So through this whole process, anyway, through this whole story, this experience, I've kind of honed in on those discoveries about myself, and I realized very quickly that I've been in the wrong industry, in the wrong type of industry, and focusing on the wrong things. My hobbies and my eagerness to jump into a subject to master it and get good at something, that is a big tell for me, and that's something that I realized. So, in this job search, this career change, what I'm gonna do is try to focus more on that, less on the things that I've documented myself as being good at and being my strengths. They're my strengths because I've worked them out for so long, so to speak, like a muscle, right? I've exercised that muscle for so long. So sure, yeah, but it's not really my strength. It's part of who I am, but the strengths are really strengths lie in within what I take pleasure in and love doing, which is the side stuff. And I just got to figure out what that side stuff is. And I would love that stuff to be this in some way, shape, or form. Video editing of this vlog, whether it's only about motorcycles or something else. Maybe it turns into something else. I don't know. But I got to figure that out. That's my mission for the next month. I have really a month of this limbo left. But until then, I'm going to keep making movies and keep talking to you guys. Hopefully somebody listens, and maybe you guys can find it helpful, or maybe no, you just find it entertaining. I don't know. But that's where I'm at, and that's what I've learned. I'm going to, let's see, where am I at now? I'm going to go through Soho. This is a cool block. I was just in Chinatown for a minute. Make a U-turn here. I don't know. I know. Alright guys, so this is the Supreme store. Used to be over on a different street forever, and they just recently moved here. That building is pretty historic. It's like, used to be owned by a single guy and his family. He bought it like way back when for dirt cheap, and then it turned into a pretty cool landmark. Bye-bye. And now we're approaching Soho. So this is Soho. I'm gonna take a left through whatever street the Apple store is on. It's not Grand. This is Spring Street. Stock X for all you sneakerheads out there. I think there was like a scandal with them recently. I don't know, big surprise. So take a left here. Prince Street, there we go, that's the street. Apple store is just straight to the left. So yeah, this is like the main Soho strip, and then left and right of this road are really like all the luxury shops. This cafe at the corner is pretty legendary. It has this like pretty cool, well, before the white gazebos, before COVID, people, it was outdoor seating anyway, but that corner table is highly coveted. People go crazy for that. Let's see what we got. Montclair, Rimowa, Miu Miu, bunch of bullshit. And the Apple store. I think this was the first one in the city. Polo, Ralph Lauren, all the good shit, guys. All the stuff that people throw all their hard-earned dollars at. I'm good with Levi's and my Hanes t-shirt. Fucking New York. Thank you. Appreciate you. Alright. Terrible roads. Alright guys, so that's it for today's video. I just wanted to share that story. It's a little long-winded, but it's important to where I'm at right now, my thought process. Like I said, I've had a lot of time to think, and that became the focal point of the last 2 days. So I've learned a lot about myself, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope it helps somebody, if not just be entertaining for you. So I gotta head back uptown. I'm gonna go up 6th Avenue, I suppose, is my game plan. And that's it. I got a couple more trips planned. I'm gonna see a buddy in a couple days, so that'll be fun. And we're gonna go, I don't know, I guess maybe Bear Mountain or something. I don't know. He wants to get out of the city, so we're gonna make a whole day of it. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for tuning in for this one, guys, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.